What's up, guys? On today's video, we're going to holla for challah. Get it? We're gonna holla for challah. No? Alright, anyway, we're gonna make challah bread today. We're gonna braid it, we're gonna do the whole shebang. So it's either gonna be awesome or I'm not going to do it very well. So we're gonna find out together.
Now the first thing you'll want to do is get roughly 1/2 cup or 102 grams of water. Make sure that it isn't too cold or too hot. You want it to be about 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Next, you'll add 6 grams of active dry yeast and 1 tablespoon of granulated sugar. Go ahead and grab a fork or a small whisk and get sexy with that mixture until it dissolves completely. Don't be afraid to get in there and really give it the old college try. Now I want to stress here water temperature. Don't overheat your water. Yeast is a living organism and you'll kill it. Respect the yeast, homie. Once it's completely dissolved, set it aside and just allow it to do its thing for the next 5 or 10 minutes. Next, you'll need 515 grams of flour and 16 grams of salt. Dump them in your mixing bowl and whisk them together, making sure to pour a little on the counter just for all your dead homies who lost their lives slanging baked goods. Go ahead and get your mixer out and grab some honey. I'm going to use about 78 grams of this jalapeno whipped honey I got from a local farmer's market, made by Wildfire Ridge Honey in Anderson, Indiana. Now once you get your honey mixed in, go ahead and start your mixer on low and add in your yeast mixture. Afterwards, grab 2 whole eggs, and I'm going to use a tip from Joshua Wiseman and toss in 4 additional egg yolks. It's going to add a lot of color to your loaf and it's going to give it that deeper, richer color. And finally, you're going to add 16 grams of vegetable oil. Now right here is where we're going to get a little crazy and bump that speed up to medium. We'll let that dough hook get wild until the dough quits sticking to the sides. You may have to add a little flour or water depending on your dough, but don't go overboard with either. Be patient and let the dough do its thing. Once your dough is ready, lightly flour your work surface and plop that dough right out. Mine's still pretty sticky, so I'm going to do a little hand kneading and that's fine. It shouldn't take too much work. Don't be afraid to get into it. Sometimes you just have to show the dough who's in charge. Once your dough is ready, form a rough ball and lightly oil the bottom and sides of your mixing bowl. Grab the dough, drop it in the bowl, cover it, and let it sit at about 78 degrees Fahrenheit. I sat mine in the oven with the lights on. Just watch the temperature, as your oven light could be a little bit too hot. Now that we've waited an hour, we're going to work the dough a little. Doing a pinch and pull, we're going to grab the dough and pull it over to the opposite side. We're going to do this on all 4 sides. Once that's done, we're going to flip the seam side down, leaving the smooth side on top. We're going to cover it back up, throw it back in the oven, and let it rise for another hour. Now that we're 2 full hours in, we're going to lightly flour our work surface again. Now get your dough out and divide it into as many equal parts as you intend on braiding. Once you get past 4 or 5, it really starts to get sketchy, so don't be a hero here. 3 or 4 is plenty to look awesome and flex on your non-bread making pals, my dudes. I suggest weighing them out to ensure that you're pretty close to even. I'm not, because I'm a rebel, and I like to have to redo my work as often as possible. Now, once you have your bread divided, gently work it into the shape of a rectangle. Once you get a rough rectangle shape, go ahead and fold it on itself until it's about 1/4 of its original size. Once you do that, it's going to set you up nicely to gently roll it into a rough cylinder. You're going to repeat this step with the rest of your pieces. Don't be afraid to add a little more flour to your work surface if it's sticking like mine is. Once you have all 4 rolled out, you're going to want to get a damp cloth and cover them to let your dough rest for an additional 15 to 20 minutes. Once it's rested, roll your dough out gently, tapering out the ends. Don't force the dough. If you notice it pulling back, don't fight it resisting. Just let it rest for a few more minutes and try again. Eventually, it's going to give in and work with you. Now, you'll want to roll each of your dough pieces out to about 12 to 14 inches. They don't have to be perfectly smooth. Once you braid it, they're going to rise and it's going to bake out fine. You're not really going to be able to tell much of a difference as long as you're in the vicinity. The next thing you'll do is arrange your dough so that it fans out, pushing the ends together on one side and then braiding them how you see fit. You can follow my braid, which I'll show in its entirety, or you can make up your own. Just make sure that you braid them as evenly as possible. Now the final step of the braiding process is to make sure you smash the other ends of your dough together as well. Now you want to take your baking sheet, toss some parchment paper on it, and transfer your loaf onto that son of a... And now you want to egg wash the hell out of this thing. Don't skimp, you need the moisture from the egg wash to protect your loaf during the final rise. Make sure you really work that egg wash into every nook and cranny. Once you really get it slathered down, we're going to toss it back into the oven for an additional 2 hours to rise. Now I know this has taken a while, but you're almost to the finish line. Once you hit the 2-hour mark, remove your loaf, let your oven preheat to 375 degrees Fahrenheit. When it heats up, toss your dough in and drop the temperature to 325. Now once you pull your bread out of the oven, go ahead and grab some butter and give it a quick rundown. You want to make sure it's still hot here, but try not to grab the baking sheet and burn your fingertips like an idiot. Next, set it aside and let it cool down. Now you've got an amazing bread, so you know what it needs? An amazing butter to go along with it. What we're going to do is take some butter and kind of smash it into a rough rectangle on some plastic wrap. Then drizzle some honey over the top. And finally, because I'm not tripping on the fact that I'm diabetic, let's dust it with a light coating of cinnamon and sugar, and by light I mean get loose on it. Next, we're going to fold our plastic wrap and roll our butter up. Just kind of grab it on the edges here and just twirl your plastic wrap around. We're going to throw this into the refrigerator, and once we've let that butter dry on our bread, the only thing left to do is cut this bad boy open and slice it up, which of course is way easier if you cut it all the way through. And there you have it, challah bread. Now me personally, I've slathered the crap out of it with butter. This bread is phenomenal. I couldn't be happier with how it turned out. And if you're into this video, shoot it a like, throw me a comment. Of course, I'll be back next week with a new recipe.